All right, in this video, Nicole Mosey of Core Mental Health Counseling is going to be joining us in a moment, talking about tips and advice for finding the right therapist. What I can say from my experience is I went through therapy once. Maybe I wasn't in the right mindset yet for it. Maybe I wasn't coachable or treatable as well, but it just didn't feel like the right fit. And then when I found Nicole and somebody on her team, everything just kind of clicked into place for me. So we're going to be talking about things such as like, well, what's the difference between private pay and going through insurance, ways to use filters online to find the right therapist for your needs, and just ways to think about approaching therapy, right? Like virtual versus in office. All of these things are going to be discussed in this conversation with Nicole Mosey. All right, let's pull her into the video and talk about finding the right therapist for you. And especially if you're a business owner and entrepreneur, this is going to be super helpful for you. I had seen a mental health counselor before and it didn't click, right? Like it was okay. And I feel like I got some benefit from it. But it was in like, I think for me, what it was is when I would speak to her, I was reading her body language and she seemed checked out, right? And like, then it became hard for me to share things to her because I'm like, all those little social cues you get that are just beneath the surface kind of thing. What's your recommendation? Because I've heard that before. Like sometimes you just have to find the right person, the right fit. And like, do you have any recommendations as far as finding the right counselor?
Yeah, I think we've become aware, we've caught up to the clients the last couple of years that they're interviewing us. This was a process I think that over the last couple of years has shifted where, we're asking all these questions on the intake, call and making sure that, we're the right fit. And it's really, I just feel like that's almost obsolete. The clients are calling. I know that there's a shortage of counselors, obviously that's a thing, but they're calling and really interviewing us and making sure that we are the right fit for them. And I think that you know, empowering the clients to make that choice. Like you knew that other counselor wasn't the right fit for you. It's going with your gut, like whatever was going on, burnout, whatever timing, it wasn't the right fit. And so I encourage clients to, it's like an interview process, it's just like trying to figure out, who it is. I do like the Psychology Today website because I almost think of it like Zillow. I know you talked about things like that before, but it's like, there's all these filters about like I'd like a male therapist or a female therapist, or I'd like someone in Buffalo, or I'd like somebody who does only virtual, or whatever that is. You kind of like filter it down to like find the perfect fit. So
I'll say too, the virtual aspect, if you're somebody who's a little nervous doing this, I felt way more like I didn't even really have the option, I think, because like I don't think you guys were doing in person then because it was, early in the pandemic. But I
yeah,
felt much more comfortable because I'm like in my space, and I'm like, it's just this little person on the screen that I'm talking to. And it just
yeah, it's
made,
not so
I think I
scary,
was
I guess.
capable of being more vulnerable in that space rather than like the 20-minute car ride down there and then just like, okay. And then like the shameful walk up the stairs, like into
Yeah.
the offices. And
Well,
I know that
time
sounds
is
ridiculous,
valuable.
but
No,
yeah.
I think time is valuable. I think entrepreneurs are sometimes they schedule to the minute, and if they're going to commit an hour of time or whatever for therapy, and if they can avoid the half-hour drive back and forth, I mean, they're going to do it. They have another meeting they want to attend. This is the same kind of mindset, I think, of a high-functioning person.
I
Yeah.
would say if you're doing it, try maybe putting it in
Yeah.
your schedule in a way that you don't have a big meeting afterwards, right?
Fair,
Because it's
fair.
almost like you get a massage and they're like, oh, drink
Yeah.
a lot of water because there's some
Yeah.
toxins. Like it was the same
Yeah.
thing, except like I was like emotionally drained after some sessions where I remember the therapist being like, you probably don't want to do a lot today. And she was absolutely right because it was like kind of that feeling of like almost like an emotional hangover. So it's just something to be considerate of. Question. So you guys, you're private practice, like private pay, right? So you don't work with insurance. If somebody's looking into, obviously the advantage of going with insurance is they're picking up a lot of the costs. But if somebody's looking into that, like why would you want to go your route versus, going through an insurance route? Like, can you kind of just elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. A lot of people ask. One of the reasons is confidentiality. So obviously, the insurance companies, in my opinion, is they're still trying to dictate the treatment a little bit. So sometimes they say you get this many sessions to work with the client, and especially with EMDR, we know that it's not the case. Everybody's treatment looks different. We got to be flexible, and we wouldn't want a client to be in the middle of that treatment, then all of a sudden have their insurance change or lose their insurance for whatever reason. So but the biggest thing there, I think, is confidentiality. We don't have to send a treatment plan or a diagnosis or anything like that to the insurance company to like substantiate that that person needs counseling. It's just like, it's more of a wellness mindset and model, like everybody could benefit and there's nobody that we need to send those records to. So it's private and it's confidential, and you could stay as long as you want, and you can pick the person you want to work with.
Do you think, as far as your yeah, like the success of it, do you think that you can do your job better if you're not having to go within those lanes that the insurance provides you?
Yeah, and the reason for that goes back to time, because in the past we'd have every 90 days we have to do a treatment plan, and it's a lot of paperwork and progress notes and all this stuff, where when you're in the private practice world, especially if you're private pay, the focus is on the client and the work that you're doing and getting better. And I don't have to spend hours of time, substantiating, no offense to the insurance company, saying, this is why we're doing the work. No, we're just doing it. We're doing the work because we're helping the client get better. So to me, it's life changing. As far as running a business goes, it's just too time consuming to focus any other way than what the client needs.
Like, let's say somebody's watching this, but we're in New York State right now recording this, and they're in a different state. Like, what are the laws and regulations and rules around that? Because if they're interested in virtual health, or telemedicine, I guess you could say, how does that work right now?
Yeah, so right now, 26 states, I believe, have signed this counseling compact law. So I think since COVID, again, this was another one of those things where it's like, why are there all these barriers to getting good mental health care treatment? So New York is one of the last on the list. So hopefully they're, one of the next to sign this law, which would mean that clients, no matter their state in the United States, could have access to counselors no matter where they're located, the counselor, and no matter where the client is located. So right now, I think 26 of them have signed the law that said, there's more flexibility in who you see. So we're working toward that. My hope is that it happens, in the next year. I don't know if that's wishful thinking or not, but I mean, the 26, I think, have been all within about a year's time. So it's pretty exciting.
If you're part of that 26, can it be that, like, let's say, I don't know if Pennsylvania's in there, right? But like, could they then work with anybody in the country or just the other 26 states?
I believe it's the other 26, because like New York, we're like last, unfortunately. So like we don't have that accessibility yet. But I think once we sign in, then it'll go both ways. Like, we can see people in different states and they can see us.
I just wanted to close this video series out by saying thank you to Nicole Mosey of Core Mental Health Counseling. If you are looking for a therapist, I will have information in the description below for her business. And it looks like in the future, who knows when, that they will be able to service more than half of the states in the country. So you can click the link in the description to get updates on that as well. But lastly, too, if you are new to this series, right, maybe you just jumped in on tips on finding a therapist, and especially if you're a business owner, I suggest checking out that playlist in the corner there, because that is going to be talking about tips and advice for therapy for business owners specifically. All right, hopefully you enjoyed the playlist, and I'll catch you in the next video.